Malo Lele, I'm Alice Lolohair and we're back. So glad you can join us on the Pacific.
Tēnā koutou katoa, I'm Johnson Daira and we have another jam-packed season of stories from across our beautiful region to share with you. But first, let's take a look at what's coming up on the show.
All the fallout from the Pacific Islands Forum in Tonga.
And Kiribati has elected a new parliament. Soon voters will decide on a new president. Who could it be and what's at stake?
First, though, we're bringing you a special report that spans 3 countries.
Yeah, because drug cartels, well, they're flooding the Pacific with hard drugs.
At a security roundtable in Canberra this week, US officials said they want to do more with Pacific partners to tackle what they say are very serious criminal networks.
But as we've learned, not enough is being done to slow the spread of drugs and the social issues that come with them in the Pacific.
With reporting from Lede Movono in Fiji, Adele Fruin in Samoa and Marian Kupu in Tonga, here's our special report through the Pacific Drug Highway.
It's a long way from beaches and blue skies. This is the dark side of the islands.
Children they having injection here, this place, like especially at the back of the bus stop. Also, people sit here and sugar.
On the streets of Suva, Fiji's capital, the drug trade is thriving. Police say they're seeing it everywhere.
The police have now this big challenge of trying to maintain and to fight this new menace that is here with us, and that is the white drugs that come in.
The Fiji police force yesterday seized 3 tons of methamphetamine.
Huge shipments from Mexican drug cartels are using Fiji as a staging point to infiltrate larger drug markets in Australia and New Zealand. And as criminals sail through our ocean backyard, families and communities are decimated in their wake. And the battle to stop drugs arriving in the first place starts here. Almost 1 million tourists arrive in Fiji every year. And this is the welcome most tourists expect when arriving in Fiji. But this one is a little different.
What do you see the dogs looking for?
Hard drugs, arms and ammunition, cash, and cannabis. Sometimes we find cash, sometimes the passengers admit that they are drug users.
The team here at Nadi Airport do what they can, but with just 2 sniffer dogs covering the entire country, huge shipments are getting in with ease.
Just 5 minutes away from Fiji's gateway airport in Nadi, in this shed,
one of the biggest drug busts the world has ever seen took place. Police found 4.8 tons of methamphetamine,
with a street value of $2 billion.
The case stunned authorities and the country. 13 people have since been charged. Police corruption is also a major problem. Serious cases of drug tampering and bribery have been uncovered in recent years.
We are now arresting police who happen to be dealing in drugs. Okay. And the numbers are concerning.
The scale of the problem has prompted Home Affairs Minister Pio Tikonduandua to announce he would be implementing a new strategy to tackle police corruption.
Nobody wants to hear a story about a police being taken in for corruption, dealing in drugs. But the fact that now that we are doing it means that we are doing something right.
From Mexico, smugglers travel across the vast Pacific and use Fiji and neighboring islands Tonga and Samoa as transit points. The cartels use contacts in the Pacific, as well as outlaw motorcycle gangs to distribute the drugs locally and onto the more lucrative Australian and New Zealand markets.
This problem of drugs is everywhere. It's everywhere. There's not enough boats to go around.
Thank you very much for your time. Okay, so what are we looking at?
Well, in here is what we call the Fiji Maritime Surveillance Rescue Coordination Center. We initially started from scratch, just a couple of computers, a couple of years back, and then with the support of government, we were able to upgrade most of our kit to where it is now.
The eyes and ears of Fiji's exclusive economic zone, Commander Humphrey Tawake, says the Navy has been effective in patrolling the country's territorial seas, but it's not enough.
These guys are so organized that they'll do whatever it takes to achieve their mission. They've got unlimited resources. They've got their roots, they're well established. So this is something that, in my view, that we need to work together from all government stakeholders, because the social impact it's currently having on our society is so bad.
Back on the streets, police say even teenagers are injecting drugs and sharing needles.
15 years to 18 years.
So a few of them will share one
syringe.
It's basically the heart of the capital. We're at the water's edge, and this is a red zone. This is where young people sit and shoot up. And I'm pretty shocked. And I'm asking the police officer, aren't these kids frightened? This is, people are going past, people can see them. And she says they're not frightened of people. They don't respect people's attention, but they respect the attention of the police. It's when they see the police that they stop shooting up.
In Samoa, drugs-related arrests are on the rise, but it hasn't deterred people from openly dealing in public. I'm at Whangalei Market, a place where drug dealers are known to operate.
A nofo se tama yo o tafa sa yaile awala fo ila lea na o vaia fatino se awala pe fo ile na na watu ore tangata le fenga luenga ma tuulo na lima tupi ile tamala le sa fa ai pitai na ova ai tu langa le vave fo ilele na ole atu sa tau ave tamalea ma ai foloa tango loa ile au maile la au ma ole ile tu limo tamalea
ono taloi no vai fo ole mele fa talipas o tupulanga light.
The Ministry of Police recently proposed the establishment of a drug control board to monitor pharmaceuticals entering the country. I reached out to a former drug dealer to talk to us. He agreed to be interviewed so long as we don't reveal his identity.
The truth is, the drugs have spread rapidly. Nowadays, they're being sold in public places. There's a determination to make a lot of money. I know that the amount of meth or ice by the size of your fist is worth more than $10,000.
This man says he was the medium between drug sellers and users, earning around $700 for one night of work.
The first reason why I wanted to change was the fact that if discovered, I'd have been dishonored. I had to think about my children, my wife, and especially my family.
He was eventually fined by his village, a type of punishment that's becoming more common in Samoa, where leaders are taking it upon themselves to protect their communities.
Matuto ina le fuala au fasai e lua se lau o matua a fatino tino tu e lua o lo iai foi le fai toto al mato no o lo fai o lo iai la wala ngalu ia a o la te me fai ngalo e leo tele no a matau le si pa ele tu la sfumba lua po.
Despite their efforts, drugs are still getting in.
Pa wale mea le o mawhai el mato no na whai. Sa talo fo le malu o malo ma le komisina. Pea mais whatanga ngai langa i mato ta vale. Ia e, pa ole o mea le o whatanga inga.
Since 2018, the Salvation Army have had nearly 2,000 people referred to the Alcohol and Drug Rehabilitation Program from the Ministry of Justice. The highest referrals are people aged between 19 to 29. In Samoa, like much of the Pacific, there are very limited resources to manage the social problems caused by drugs.
I remember 20 years ago when I was working as a youth worker in New Zealand, they say, oh, I'm using marijuana, I'm drinking beer, I'm smoking cigarettes. Before I left, in 2018, I asked the same age group and they say, oh, I don't use marijuana, I don't use beer, but I use methamphetamine, I use ice. So that's my fear, because I've seen that happening over there and I could see that it's coming to our shores. So very concerned. We're facing a massive mountain and massive problem here, so we need 10 other or more services like the Salvation Army here. But we also need to be careful. We need to have properly trained clinicians.
Tonga is also struggling to manage the increase of drug use. The prison here is also experiencing an influx of inmates convicted of drug offences. I've got mixed emotions right now. Scared, worried, definitely curious. Curious because I want to know what they want to share with me. I traveled to Toritori prison to speak firsthand with convicted drug offenders. We've used pseudonyms and obscured their identities.
I'm in here because I got caught with 8 ounces of 5 with crystal, 2 with coke, and 1 with marijuana.
It's an increasingly common story, and many are lured by the financial rewards.
Naku whahawa mo kilo pe hongo fulu he whakapuna he peki. Ka wate o mo hongo fulu, maha te uma fui taha kilo he fui kilo.
They also told us how international the drug trade in Tonga has become.
O koneki pe ka kai pe o. A o beke he kau pailate koe. Kau e hostess ko ngau e aki. Kau angi pe fuge nau konga he koe. Konga fuge tila.
Koe tau parapare ma fuolo a koe kaiha. Koe tolai taha api koe kaiha.
Prison Commissioner Semisi Tapueluelu has been working in the prison system since the 70s. He had hopes for turning Toritori into a place of true reform and rehabilitation, but without proper support, the prison and its inmates slipped through the cracks.
Ka koe mea ia o whaamu koe ki ai. Pea taha mea maho inga taha ai, ko mea koe ke lawa. Kia te au koe utui, o waifu mahina ke pureanga.
Life here is hard, particularly for women.
O mau tū toko lahi, ia me kau malu i o mai tau toko lahi I loto. Pau ke me mau o popula pe toko ua na toko whaere na ua na ia tataha he loki. Pako toenga lewa mau tolu ko kau popula toko no o ku mau itu agi mau tolu I he whakawhare tolo pe fuspui pui pe o tuka mau ngai mohenga mau nofo ai.
Prisoner Sella says she was arrested after she and her partner found cocaine packages that had washed ashore. From the confines of prison, she watched her family come apart.
He go I he ni, ko loto whare ke he tolu ke ki whanau ko hea ke nau tolu hai. Pako rea pe whae o mai ka te au, ko ne mea peo tarangi ke ai pe o ku ki he I kai keu I api. Mo ni ku whakaore ore I he ku kui te whakaore ore I pe he ku whae, kai ke narawa ke tā, I ke narawa. Ka ko e ku I he ni o ku I he ni whataha mau tangata eki. Whihia mai peo tangata eki he mea pe ko ngoi a te au. Koe ke ifo nofo he ni he siogi he nau mo te pe he.
Wow, so many lives impacted by drugs at every level in our communities. We want to say a big thank you to our reporters who went above and beyond to tell this very difficult story.
Drugs are a problem in every country, but this really highlights how small Pacific nations are particularly vulnerable to the international drug trade.
Security was also a major talking point as leaders met for the Pacific Islands Forum in Tonga. Now that all is said and done, we're going to take a look at what was discussed and what happens now that the dust has settled.
Malo Lele, and welcome back to our opening reception for the 53rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders Meeting.
As always, there was plenty of action and a lot on the agenda. One of the big winners was an Australian-funded Pacific Policing Initiative, aimed at creating a police training facility in Brisbane and establishing a support group that could be deployed across the region.
Tonga, like many other countries, are facing a number of transnational security challenges.
We have now drugs, human trafficking.
But not long after the announcement, PM Albanese put his foot in it.
The Prime Minister has been caught on camera jokingly asking America's top Indo-Pacific expert to help cover the cost of a $400 million regional policing program.
You can go as hard as on the cost if you like.
The hot mic moment wouldn't be the last at PIF, and it left many questioning Australia's motives, with some Pacific leaders warning the initiative shouldn't be used to box out China. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres was also in town, with millions pledged towards climate change resilience.
To massively boost climate adaptation investments to protect people from present and future risks.
But many thought talks around climate didn't go far enough.
Opening and subsidizing and exporting fossil fuel is immoral and unacceptable.
Still, it was all smiles when Prime Minister Albanese and his Tuvalu counterpart, Feleti Teo, finally ratified the Whalepili Union Treaty, a major climate, security and visa pathway deal.
For the first time, there is a country, Australia, that has committed legally to come to the aid of Tuvalu.
And at long last, after some contentious delays, a pathway has been mapped for Pacific leaders to visit New Caledonia.
We'll finalise a timing for when this fact-finding mission will take place very shortly.
And it wouldn't be a Pacific Forum without a bit of geopolitical drama. Chinese ambassador to the Pacific, Zhang Bo, was left incensed after language about Taiwan was included in the final communique. 3 Pacific Island Forum members still have diplomatic ties with Taiwan.
It must be a mistake.
The reference to Taiwan was later removed. Questions persist over whether the original communique was published in error or whether PIF leaders were pressured. Another hot mic moment from RNZ Pacific journalist Lydia Lewis caught PIF chair Mark Brown saying,
To unpack it all, we're joined now by Joey Tau from the Pacific Network on Globalization. He was in Tonga for the forum. Bula vanaka, Joey.
Bula, thank you for having me on the show today.
Now let's take a look at the drama that took place at the end of the forum. China's Pacific envoy had a paragraph concerning Taiwan removed from the final communique. What do you make of that?
It's a portrayal of the external partners' interest in the Pacific. Everyone wants a part of the Pacific, be it China, Taiwan, the US. But I think it comes with caution. I guess the situation with China having our leaders, having its frustration expressed with our textual acknowledgement by our leaders is unfortunate. And we hope that such incidents don't happen in the future. One that allows that all dialogue partners or all external partners have a say, but ensuring that the priorities, the issues of our region are not forgotten or not they don't take precedence over the issues in our region.
Issues that are important to the Pacific, like climate change. Now, there were some announcements on that, but what about Australia's policing initiative? Is this something that the Pacific needs?
I guess, yes, per the leaders' comments, if you see and having spoken to some of them, we hope it is one that serves the needs of policing in the Pacific, and one that does not just serves its term as 5 years and cannot be sustained. So it needs further consultation, and that's why you would have seen some of the leaders who have asked that it could go into further consultation through the membership.
Now, there was some progress on a proposed visit by Pacific leaders to New Caledonia, but on West Papua, there's been no update from the special envoys, the PNG and Fiji Prime Ministers, except to say they hope to visit West Papua before the next leaders' meeting. Is this concerning?
To this date, the attempts, either be it at the Melanesian Spearhead Group or at the Leaders Forums, the Secretariat level, have not been able to conduct a fact-finding mission. Yet we have seen the envoys facilitate and bilaterally have and host visiting dignitaries of Indonesia. Quite recently, one of the envoys, the Prime Minister Marape, hosted President-elect in Papua New Guinea. So these are quite concerning, where leaders are pursuing their own issues bilaterally. again forgetting about regional concerns such as West Papua or Kanaki, New Caledonia.
There's the phrase, less talk, more action. Now, do you think that there will be action by Pacific leaders to promptly address the issues discussed?
It's challenging for the region given a lot of interest there is for our region. I hope it does not fog us and ignore the real concerns of our people, be it climate change, be it the issue of deep sea mining, biodiversity protection, the issues of human rights and decolonization. Needs to have this heavy talk, but also heavy action.
Joey, mei te kia tupaka for joining us on the Pacific.
Thank you, Tomas.
Marshall Islands, Tuvalu and the Solomon Islands have all held elections this year. And now, Kiribati. I-Kiribati elected a new parliament last month ahead of a presidential runoff in coming weeks. You might think of Kiribati as a small island nation, but actually its vast ocean territories are massive, making up an area around half the size of mainland Australia. And if you were watching international headlines, you'd have seen that Kiribati was among the first in a slew of Pacific countries that switched diplomatic ties from Taiwan to China. The move was controversial, but it wasn't the outgoing administration's only contentious policy. The government sacked a number of foreign judges to install political allies.
Few foreign journalists come here.
There's been a crackdown on press freedoms, and most recently, foreign diplomatic visas have been cancelled until 2025. Despite all this, Kiribati's people are more worried about other domestic issues during this election. Fuel and medicine shortages, ballooning inflation, the ever-present impact of climate change, and declining healthcare have been front and centre of the campaign, which culminated with 2 rounds of voting to elect the country's parliament. So far, outgoing President Tanes Mamau has retained his seat alongside opposition leader Tessie Lambourne. She's among a record 5 women elected who will gather alongside re-elected members and 17 brand new representatives to nominate candidates for a final runoff presidential election. And the new government's eventual makeup? Well, that's difficult to predict, with the elected president to select a government based on complex horse trading that's already begun. i-Kiribati investigative journalist Rimon Rimon joins us from Suva, Fiji, where he's on his way home from covering the Pacific Islands Forum. Māori Rimon, how are you?
Well, Māori Alice, I'm doing fine. How are you doing yourself?
I'm doing very well, Rimon. Thanks for joining us. Now, can you first just explain what you see as the key issues on which this election's been fought? I know the outgoing government has some popular social welfare policies around unemployment, but what else is at play?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Alice. You know, the election process, as you understand, is undertaken with 2 cycles. The first cycle is the general elections, which just concluded. And what we're seeing there is that the key issues are mainly about the general welfare and the standard of living for the people in Kiribati. These are really the key issues. So within the past 4 years, how government has delivered public services and how people are, you know, just going about their daily lives have really been key issues. We're seeing that the outgoing ruling party, which is Tupan Kiribati Party, which is, you know, the TKP in short, leading the race in the general elections. So despite that, that lead in race, meaning they secured a lot of the majority of the seats in parliament, they also had quite a substantial loss of seats to newcomers. 17 new seats were secured by newcomers. Now, 17 is quite a significant number in a 44-seat parliament in Kiribati. And I think that really tell that perhaps people need something new, you know, and that's been reflected in those votes. I think how these 17 newcomers align themselves with the traditional political parties within Parliament is something to look into, and that's something that we are you know still observing as they sort themselves out ahead of the presidential elections.
Yes, speaking of that presidential runoff, who is likely to be nominated in your opinion?
Look, so for TKP, the Toban Kiribati Party, the outgoing ruling party, it looks like the incumbent president, Tanis Mama, will easily get his party's nomination. Now, for opposition, Tessie Lambon, who is the wife of the one of the judges who got sacked by the current government, the outgoing government rather, her name has been floating around for opposition, to be the best contender. But this is still all unclear at this stage. So I think the challenge now with these candidates is to campaign, because they'll be given a 1-month window of campaigning. And as you understand, Kiribati is scattered, across a vast area of ocean. So campaigning cannot reach all islands. And so they will need to focus on the key electorates, they're kind of like the swing states in the US election. And so these states constitute quite a number of registered voters. These electorates combined constitute, I think, at least approximately 51% of the registered voters. So I think that's where the campaign will be really focused on.
Let's take a look at the previous administration. They've drawn the ire of international human rights groups over its perceived move away from transparency and open justice. Do you think that's something that everyday people are concerned about?
That is certainly true, Alice. More especially true in the capital compared to the outer islands, the more rural areas, and that is because people in the capital or in the capital, the South Tarawa, have more access to information that better inform them. So what we're seeing is that many of the elements of the Constitution have been manipulated. Some of the democratic processes have been undermined, and these are things that we observed and I've reported on extensively in the past 4 years. And so we're seeing, corruption finding its way into our governance system. Media freedom is also another issue hindering our democracy from functioning properly. I think it's important to note that since 2021, the incumbent president has been successful in avoiding questions, answering questions from the media, and we continue to ask these questions. We continue to knock on their doors, and we hope that there is a change in this sort of approach in the next 4 years by whoever is in government. But the work of media, especially myself, in just ensuring transparency and holding our leaders accountable is not an easy job, Alice.
Well, we definitely look forward to speaking to you more as this continues to unfold. But for now, Rimon, koraba.
Koraba, and thank you for the opportunity, Alice. Sapoma.
Well, that's all we have time for this week, but remember, you can catch all our stories and more on ABC Pacific Socials.
We'll be back next week where we speak to the leaders of Bougainville's fight for independence. Nisabode.
Ka kite.